And welcome back to Tech Community Live. This hour is special. This is the Windows and AI Experiences AMA, your hour of answers, insights, and innovation. Like any other TCL AMA, this is the show where your questions take center stage and the future of Windows AI may unfold in real time. Now, we've gathered product managers, engineers, and AI specialists from all across Windows to answer your questions live. No scripts, no slides, just real talk about the tools that are transforming how we work, create, and connect. So grab your favorite beverage, fire up your curiosity, and drop your questions into the chat, the platform you're watching, because the next hour is all about you and the future of Windows AI. I am your host, Steve Thomas, and with me we have Xander Fiss, Paul Gosmarino, and of course, Aria Hansen. So let's do some quick intros, and we'll start with Paul. Paul, how are you?
Hey, doing well. Hey, everyone. I'm a group product manager on the Windows AI team and excited to talk with you and answer your questions about a lot of the AI features we have in Windows and Copilot Plus PCs.
Awesome. Up next, we have Xander.
Hey, everyone. I'm a product manager on the Windows Shell team. I've worked on File Explorer and other parts of the core Windows experience that you get when you install Windows, such as the taskbar, Start menu, Action Center, and continuing to drive a lot of innovation and creativity from our design and engineering teams in that space.
And rounding off this team of all-stars, we have with us Aria Hansen. How are you?
Hey, Steve. Glad to be here with y'all. I am Aria. I'm on the team as well, focused primarily on things like model delivery and commercial management of AI, as well as getting to partner with awesome folks like Paul and Xander to help get your commercial feedback into the hands of our feature teams to build better products.
All right. We already have some questions here. Is there an easy way to see what AI features are being rolled out to home versus to commercially managed devices by default?
Aria, do you want to talk about the feature rollout with the annual updates?
Yeah, let's do it. We also need to play the noses game so we can figure out who actually goes first on these unscripted things. So first of all, if you haven't already checked it out, I would go to aka.ms-Windows Roadmap. The Windows Roadmap is a great place to go to see what's coming when. You'll see all of the things that are in the Windows Insider program, as well as what's rolling out to retail and what's available for commercial. Now there, you'll be able to see when's commercial availability, which for anyone who's just catching up here, we go to Insiders first. We then gradually roll it out to your typical home users to make sure that it's good quality and to get feedback on it. And then we finally enable it in a optional LCU and then security LCU for commercial customers. But we know, especially with AI, that can be really scary. And you might need more time to do compliance and testing. So we actually make sure that those features are off by default for commercial customers, and you get them as part of an annual feature update, where you might think like Win 11 24H2, Win 11 25H2, etc. You can actually turn on these features though early by enabling temporary commercial control, which you can see more about on aka.ms-Windows Roadmap.
This popped up on X just now. What's an LCU?
Apologies. We use abbreviations way too much in life. So LCU is just latest cumulative update, which is really just another way of saying quality update. Because if you think about the monthly security quality update, it contains all of the previous month's security fixes and optional features as well.
Awesome. So I'm just curious for the panel here. What's your favorite AI feature in Windows? I'll go first. Studio Effects. I love Studio Effects.
It's so hard to, it's like asking one's favorite child, you know.
Well, you only have one kid.
Well, I have one child, so it's easy for me in that case. But I have to say I'm a huge fan of Click to Do. I think it's just really kind of powerful and magical and just speeds up a lot of things you have to do in your everyday life.
I'll interpret the question a little fluidly and go beyond Windows, but the thing that I'll tell anyone to try, if you haven't already, is the researcher agent in M365 Copilot.
Oh, yeah.
Give it something really challenging that you might not expect it to be able to do, and prepare to be delighted and surprised. And so I'm really excited not only about that feature as it exists today, but how Windows and aspects of M365 Copilot that integrate Windows are going to be really empowering as they build on these reasoning models.
I'm going to be honest, my favorite feature is one I actually hated initially and tried multiple times to be like, we shouldn't do this. But I actually really like recall now. And the reason for that is I'm on insider builds all the time. A big part of my job is flighting, which means I'm always on the bleeding edge. I probably get an update every single day on my primary device, which means that I'm constantly rebooting, I'm constantly changing files and things like that, which can make it a bit difficult to actually remember where I was in different things, as well as make sure everything is saved. And it constantly is shutting my windows because of the reboot, and which actually my team should be fixing this to just rehydrate automatically. Oops. Recall has been really helpful in saying, oh, yeah, that Word document, here's exactly what that content was. Oh, maybe autosave didn't fail. It's still in my recall snapshot. And so like that's been very helpful in a surprising use case, but it might just also be specific to me. For commercial customers watching this, recall is off the device, removed completely and disabled for you by default. You have to take multiple steps to enable it. I just am really happy it's enabled for me.
I cannot go back from anything else now that I have a Copilot Plus PC. I mean, it's like, you know, a month of using it, you're like, how did I ever exist without this? And it's amazing. Now personally, I like Studio Effects completely for selfish reasons. I'm going back to school also in the evenings, getting an online degree, and as you can imagine, I'm on there with a lot of students that are 20, 25 years younger than me. So you feel a little self-conscious being the oldest person in the room. Well, you know, Studio Effects kind of cleans you up a little bit and makes you look, well, at least makes me look less hideous. So, and the best thing about Studio Effects is it doesn't matter what you're using. Whether you're using Teams, whether you're using Google Meet, whether you're using Zoom, whether you're using WebEx, the sparkles pop up and, oh, there's my sparkles. I can clean myself up a little bit here and even make myself sound better. See, I don't really sound like this. This is the Windows AI. Okay, little exaggeration there, but all right. We've got some questions piling up here, so let's get back to that. So this question says, I don't feel like there are any AI features outside of Copilot Plus PCs. Is that right, or am I missing something?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll say, you know, there's so many features from Microsoft. I mean, Xander named, you know, Researcher and M365 Copilot, you know, but there's tons of features that have to do with AI or use AI across the system. And, you know, what's unique about the Copilot Plus PC ones is that because they have this extra AI computing capability, because they have these MPUs, there's a bunch of features that are only possible when you have a Copilot Plus, you know, PC because of that extra local AI compute capability. And so, you know, obviously M365 Copilot and all those Copilot features, those all kind of use the cloud and cloud models. And so, you know, there's tons of AI things you can do in Windows if you don't have a Copilot Plus PC. But yeah, there's a lot of features that need a Copilot Plus PC because they need that local compute power to do that.
Exactly. You know, Copilot's kind of a common noun now because you have, you know, as Andrew alluded to earlier, you have the features from M365 that don't require Copilot Plus PC. And then, of course, you have everything. If you're a coder, there's, you know, GitHub Copilot. You know, there are Copilots everywhere. Copilot's integrated into your Office applications like Word and Excel. And then, of course, we have the NPU-powered Windows operating system AI features or AI-powered features that will require a Copilot Plus PC. All right.
It depends on how you're talking about AI.
Well, that too, yes.
I think that, like, if we're being honest, AI has taken a giant evolution. And there's the sparkles you mentioned, where you'll see all these features that are called out as AI features. And typically those are ones that are using small language models or large language models in the cloud. But if you actually are taking it down to like heuristics or taking it down to small local models that we've had running on all Windows devices, we actually have some that run core systems, and we have for quite a while. It's just they're more foundational. They're less of the additional feature value adds. But I do think that that's where we're going, is more and more of the AI features, more and more of those processes are being built up for Copilot Plus PCs to leverage that NPU, because otherwise they can be really draining to your battery and your performance, and no one wants a slow PC.
No.
An example I'll give, just to point one out, is there's a feature called live captions in Windows where, any audio stream coming through, it'll caption it. And you actually can do that on any modern Windows PC that's not even a Copilot Plus PC. But if you want the live translation, where it's not only captioning it, but also translating it in real time in another language, then you do need a Copilot Plus PC because of the level of AI compute that needs. So that's just kind of an example I'd give. But if you want those kind of cutting edge features, then you need a Copilot Plus PC. But things that don't require that compute are still available in a regular PC.
Just got a question pop in. You mentioned Studio Effects. Will Studio Effects work on just Microsoft apps like Teams, or can I use it with apps like Google Meet, Zoom, WebEx, etc.? Well, if you didn't catch it, yes, you can. You can. I mean, this feature ties into the devices themselves, so it's application agnostic. Keep me honest, everybody. It
operates at the video stream level. So even if you use the camera app or a website that's hosting a web, camera control or anything like that, Studio Effects app operates at the video stack layer of the OS.
Awesome. So next question coming from the tech community. Are you guys aware of issues to authenticate to third-party apps when using Windows Hello? This issue is going away once you sign into Windows using regular password. Is there any AI coming to authentication in Windows? Interesting.
It sounds like maybe the person needs to lock their screen and then authenticate with a different mechanism to get some things to work, just from the way I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not, aware of any, and that's just because of the specific things that I'm focused on. But I certainly think it's something that we could follow up on if it's, something that you're experiencing and that isn't well known. It's great that you're bringing it up.
Yeah, a lot of times, a lot of these will require partnerships across many different teams as well. I've been working on some super secret things that I can't talk about. That's involving a lot of different teams, because when you're talking about AI ecosystems, you have to involve platform teams, you have to involve service teams, and there's so many cloud services, and then there's all these teams that operate behind the curtain that the users and the customers never interface with, that we're all having to build our stuff on top of. So a good example of that would be things like integrating AI like technologies into things like authentication, because at the end of the day, that's going to require cooperation from not only the Windows team but the identity team. But I'm seeing more and more of these cross-team partnerships, predominantly around AI-empowered technology, and it's just frankly exciting. I mean, I can't wait for Ignite this November, because there's going to be lots of cool things coming out. I guess I need to be quiet and get back to the questions because people are here for the questions and not to hear me ramble on and on. But we have a question here from the tech community. Are there plans to merge the camera settings like blur, framing, etc., into MS Teams with the Windows Studio Effects if running on Copilot PCs, so that the NPU is always utilized? Preference being the toggles are tied together.
On the question of the Teams UI integrating their settings for these effects with the system settings for the effects, I believe there's been some work done there. So I'm trying to remember exactly how the settings manifest and where those are in the rolling out process. But there is a connection. So if you're on a Copilot Plus PC and you go to Teams and you turn on some of these effects like the blur, I believe they are actually mapping to the system setting and turning on the system-wide blur effect. So you're getting the NPU-powered effect. Teams also recently rolled out super resolution on the Copilot Plus PC, another related integration with Teams where it upscales effectively the video stream of people who are sending a low-quality video stream on a Copilot Plus PC. So I know there's a lot of integration they've done there. I don't remember the exact way they've integrated the settings, but I know there's been some settings integration, and some of the toggle switches, if you go there, you'll see they're a little different on a Copilot Plus PC versus on a regular PC.
Yeah. So with every kind of new shiny thing, we always have people and actors out there that sometimes cause us to not have shiny things. And this leads to a question here from Joaquim on the tech community. Obviously, with new technologies like AI models and NPU, we have to worry about threat actors. We have to worry about bad software. Are we worried about how anti-malware solutions might take benefit of the NPU and AI models?
So I think there's two parts here. And I think one of the things is, how are we securing the platform? And then the other one is, how are we enabling better threat protection on that platform?
Yeah.
And so, like, from a security perspective, when you look at Copilot Plus PCs, right, like, they're all local models or hybrid models, meaning they're both local and in the cloud. On regular PCs, they're also the same, right? So you have local models operating with all of the device context on the device itself with no data going anywhere. All of that should be either accessing existing data storage protection, or in the case of things like recall, adding additional encryption and protection on top of the data that's being stored. For things that are sent to the cloud or are using cloud models, especially in the case of commercial, it's all about maintaining those tenant boundaries and maintaining the different data protection rules that you have set up, whether you're using Purview or you're using other data protection implementations. And data really is the biggest thing there. From ensuring that bad actors don't get in or access those things, it's really about ensuring controls, admin privileges, who can actually elevate their privileges, what those things look like, the same way it is today. And if you're giving elevated privileges to users, again, always be careful with that and make sure that you're only doing that for specific devices and users. In terms of how anti-malware can take advantage of it, this is something we talk a lot about. If you look at companies, whether it's our own things like Microsoft Defender, if you look at things like McAfee is actually a great example. McAfee already has built a solution on top of the NPU where they are actually leveraging it to determine deepfakes within online videos. So if you're watching things like YouTube, you can actually automatically detect a deepfake using that local model and using the power of the NPU. And so I expect we'll see more and more of this, where if you're able to take all of that context on a device, analyze it locally, so you don't need to send all that information somewhere. Can you identify threats, third-party actors, man-in-the-middle attacks, et cetera, more quickly? And so that's definitely an area we're looking at. We're partnering with our ISVs to look at and making sure that we can build solutions there, especially in the enterprise space.
On that note, how do we keep our data safe and follow regulatory compliance rules when using AI features like recall?
I can start on this one at least. So I'll say a few things. First, there's a whole bunch of work that's been done by default in keeping your data safe with recall that I can talk to. And then there's also a whole bunch of controls that have been created for enterprise admins that let you further, meet different regulatory or policy needs you may have in your organization. And as Aria said before, just to remind everyone, recall is off by default, not enabled. The bits aren't even there on managed devices until you set policies to turn them on in the first place. So you're totally in control of that. In terms of what's been done, there's been a ton of security work done where all the data is encrypted on the drive, all the screenshots and search indices and so forth, encrypted in a way that's tied to the NPU and hello auth, biometric, the latest biometric authentication rules. So it's super kind of encrypted and locked down data that only the user themselves has access to. Even the IT admin doesn't have access to that data the way it's encrypted. And then when all this stuff is run, it's run in a secure enclave so that prevents against even runtime threats and attacks to the data, from other processes. So there's been a ton of security work done, and I'm not even the security expert, but there's a great blog post from David Weston that kind of goes into a lot of detail. If there's any real security experts, who want to have really precise questions about it. But there's been tons and tons of work Microsoft has put into it. They've had third parties, do threat models and attacks on the system, and it's really gone tremendous amount of scrutiny so that by default everything is really secure. Beyond that, there's a bunch of policies, and if you go to, I think it's AKA MS Manage Recall, that website, you can actually see a blog post that kind of goes over the policies and advice on managing recall. But some of the things you can do include, you can constrain the amount of space that's taken up by snapshots. You can constrain the duration of how long snapshots and kind of historical information stays. You can have basically a retention policy, say only keep them for a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever your organization's policies make you comfortable with. And then there's a lot of controls around the specific sites and apps that you allow. So you can have filtering policies, and you can include various apps or not in those filtering policies. If you don't want, if you have a sensitive application in your organization, you don't want people to be able to search over, you can filter that out. So there's a whole bunch of policies that you can apply, and there's a whole bunch of fundamentals of security that are there in place. But for the things you do choose to allow and let through, it is this magical, index that just lets you find anything you've seen before, and it's like once you kind of get used to that, I think as Ari was saying, it's hard to go back to a world where you didn't have that superpower as a person to go recall anything that you'd come across. So I think the customers in your organization are going to find it incredible. The users in your organization are going to find it really useful once you do figure out the right time and way to deploy it.
So this isn't really a question, it's more along the lines of feedback, but it's pretty solid from Paul in the tech community. We have issues with SSO, Hello, Cloud, Kerberos Trust, and it's hard to troubleshoot. Maybe if Copilot could help diagnose such issues, that would be great. And I've seen a lot of product teams now starting to leverage AI, especially on the client side, to help people troubleshoot. We've always had, ever since like Windows 7, we've always had little troubleshooting capabilities on the client side. But now that you can harness the power of AI rather than just basic rules matching and static analysis, you can really open up some possibilities, because it's a win-win situation. The user, the customer, gets their problem solved quicker, and it also means we don't have to field as many support calls. So yes, everyone wins in that kind of scenario there. More questions coming in here. This one is from tech community, from someone eager to leverage the live translation into other languages than English. Is there any news on the international rollout of the Copilot Plus PC capabilities, specifically the EU region?
I remember the initial rollout had many languages to English.
Yeah.
And I think this person is asking, hey, when will it do support other languages as the output? So translate into French or Italian or Spanish. And
I think it's more when it's going to be available in the EU region.
I think it is available in the EU region. And
yeah,
I think I think it is available, but the model, it's these models that are used are many to one translation models. And so right now, I believe the model in the V1, in the first version was put out, was many languages to English. And I don't know off the top of my head the time frame of having more output languages. That's what I recall.
You can also go to the aka.ms roadmap, and you should be able to see if there are any country embargoes that are currently available for live translations. It looks like it is currently available in the EU region as well, and that we're currently able to test out both to English and to Chinese, specifically Mandarin. And so I think you can go and check out both of those. Now, that said, there are certain features that are not yet available in the EU region, and you can see those denoted on the roadmap as well. And most of those have timelines for when they're expected to be available, although for some, they aren't noted. And that's typically because we're still working through ensuring that we have all of the proper controls, regulation requirements, and things like that to be able to safely and confidently deploy it and meet all of the different governance in those areas.
I was just testing that feature out for fun on a meeting with my teammates last week, where I have a teammate from Portugal and a teammate who spent like 3 years in Brazil and speaks fluent Portuguese. And they had a conversation back and forth in Portuguese, and I was able to listen to it, and it was translating perfectly. And I was just amazed at that feature. Really amazed at that feature. All right. So another question. If one of my users is using an AI feature, what happens if I lose my internet connection?
I mean, if they're using a feature that's using the on-device models, it should continue to work as you would expect. I think if you're using one of the cloud models, then, unsurprisingly, then you won't be able to continue using that feature until you reestablish internet connectivity. But that's one of the other benefits of having on-device AI is, whether it's a slow or an unreliable internet connection, or maybe you're on an airplane or in some other location where you might not have internet, but you still get all of those benefits of being able to use those AI features. So while there's a lot of advantages to using the models that are in the cloud, whether it's just, the power and flexibility that they provide, it's such a nice complement to have the on-device AI to speed up a lot of tasks, and that's just going to keep getting better over time. So
here's a question for you, Xander. How can we tell which features use on-device or cloud-based? Can we can't go on-device for everything today, right? I mean,
yeah, it's a great question. And I'm not going to be able to answer that entirely, but I can give a couple examples that come to mind right away. So for example, in Paint, I believe, and someone step in and correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong, there's both, cloud-based and on-device generation, and that user experience, makes clear which parts of it do and don't require it. There's also a content verification system in there. So I believe that there are some cases where the on-device AI might require an internet connection, just to make sure that the way that the content is being generated adheres to all of our, content guidelines. But generally speaking, you want that to be clear for the user, whether you're using on-device AI or whether you're using something that requires an internet connection. I don't know if there is like a system-wide standard yet for how to indicate that to the user. But it's definitely a really important aspect of communicating with the user what's happening on their system, and something that we'll have to keep in mind moving forward.
It's good feedback, though. I mean, when the question can, some of these questions sometimes can spawn ideas from our side to where, hey, we need to, look at some of the usability and the accessibility and come up with interesting tools that, again, that's why we do these things. All right. 25H2 was recently announced. Does this mean AI features like Click to Do will be on by default for our users with that update?
Yeah, so all of the features that are behind temporary commercial control are those new AI features or really major UI changes like Click to Do, which were off by default for commercial customers on 24H2, will now be enabled by default on 25H2. That said, for many of them, including Click to Do, there's also permanent policies, whether CSP or GP, that you can use to disable them or configure them. And so I'd highly recommend making sure that you've got the proper configurations in place as part of your feature update process from 24H2 to 25H2. Also, I believe 25H2 should be a seamless transition, so hopefully not too much to validate there.
Excellent. And for those listening, that's aka.ms/manage click to do. All right. Let's see if we have any more questions coming in here. In the meantime, something else that I find pretty cool is the expanded search capabilities, because I'm horrible with file names. I'm horrible with identifying documents. I can't tell you how many I get so lazy, I get in a hurry. And so when I just click save in Word, it gives you the default, which is like the first words of the sentence, and that becomes your file name. So, the semantic capabilities in the advanced search have really, boosted my productivity, probably more personally than professionally, especially when it comes to things like using natural language for image searching and using or another thing that I've discovered, which I'm sure everybody who's using this knows this, but I'm big on moving around from PC to PC to PC to PC, and of course, OneDrive doesn't hydrate all their files by default now. And the cool thing about this is it doesn't matter if the file's hydrated or not, because it's that relationship between the local models and the processing, empowered by Microsoft 365, that can kind of extend that natural language search capability to my cloud estate as well. And that's just not on the work side, but personally as well, because I'm searching pictures more personally than I am obviously professionally. But we have some more questions coming in here. Where can I find info on the permanent controls? I assume these are the management controls.
Yeah, if you go to the policy CSP page, you'll be able to go to AI management, and there's actually a whole list of the policies that we have for these AI features. You could also start to see the ones for Click-to-Do specifically at aka.ms-click-to-do or manage Click-to-Do.
Yeah, and I think all the policies are AKAMS/CSP/Windows AI.
Yeah.
Oh, even better. Nice.
Steve, on your topic, I just actually find the whole mechanism behind semantic search really fascinating.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much as a crew we want to really get into the weeds there, but just the whole idea of, creating, these embeddings, right? Somehow numerically finding a representation for the meaning. It's just so profound. And having used computers, for as long as I can remember, and even not that long ago, a lot of these things just feeling like, oh, that's going to be so far off in the future. Just the speed that things have moved to be able to do these types of things that not that long ago felt like science fiction. It's a super exciting time to be involved in the space, because just from a design point of view, not from a visual design, but in terms of what can we do to provide things that make people's lives easier, it really just opens up so many doors and possibilities. You mentioned photos, and that's a great example, because photos that come off of your phone, or if you have a dedicated digital camera, the file names don't really indicate anything other than potentially the order in which the photos were taken. So you've really got no information in the file name. And then with file names that are given to documents, of course, even if you're trying to be very intentional about that, all it takes is somebody using a slightly different word that to them means the same thing. And hey, maybe they couldn't find it before, but now they can.
The scary thing is when you put in the name of your granddaughter and they find the freaking picture. That's even scarier sometimes. But a lot of that is because there's been a lot of learning from conversations, and it's just wild. But like you said, yeah, file names for images, especially IMG 4567. Yeah, that's
right.
So we have another question coming in. In talking with companies the last few months, what AI features are they adopting with success? What's a good first feature to enable or roll out? Well, I would say semantic search. I would say the advanced search, what we were just talking about.
I think it depends on if you have a Copilot Plus PC or you don't have a Copilot Plus PC.
Well, yeah.
So on a Copilot Plus PC, I would actually just enable all features behind temporary commercial control. That'll give you everything but recall, and you can begin rolling them out. So you get improved Windows search, you get Click-to-Do, you'll get the new features that we're rolling out, and you'll get to see how those just improve upon the basic system and start playing around with local AI. If you don't have a Copilot Plus PC, I would say M365 Copilot is great to start enabling, even if you're not paying for the subscription, just starting to see how that works. But the subscription where you actually connect it to your work files and your work OneDrive is what I find powerful about it. I would say for me personally, M365 Copilot with the subscription is one of the most worth it things for the Teams meeting notes, for the access to my own Outlook and all of those different data elements, because it has access to my work files. The other one I would really look at, because I find it extremely helpful in my own day-to-day, is Visual Studio. And the reason I say that is because if you're looking at Visual Studio, you can actually do a bunch of AI plugins, whether it's GitHub Copilot, whether it's plugging in third-party models like Claude, or using even other of the tools. And you can use that. It's a really powerful tool, whether for the devs at your company or even for those people who are maybe more early adopters for how they might want to do things like research or build out. Even things like product specs for us, we can now use those toolings for. So I think there's a bunch of different angles depending on the users who are in your early adopter group.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely +1 here. Even just the Word and PowerPoint integrations are amazing. And the AI recaps from Teams are getting better and better and better. And, I'm going to admit there are a lot of meetings that I usually passively attend that I don't necessarily have to attend anymore, which frees me up to do more focus work and productivity. So, AI is impressive, and it's just getting better and better and better. It's exciting.
And as we know, like you definitely want to, get M365 Copilot, rolling out, of course, if you're not already, and one of the things that was talked a little bit about at Build, and you may hear more in the future about, but, already at Build, they showed some examples of things where things can get, even better if you have both Copilot Plus PCs and M365 Copilot. And so whether you are deploying M365 Copilot across your existing set of devices you have, whether as you move from Windows 10 to Windows 11, you're taking the opportunity to get onto the Copilot Plus PC generation of hardware. Those are all things that, will add up in a cumulative way. And I think one of the things that, was shown at Build, for example, was back in May, was being able to do all the summarization features in Outlook locally on a Copilot Plus PC, so they can still work when you're offline, or so you can use encrypted mails and still summarize them, because that can't be done on a cloud. It's end-to-end encryption and end-to-end encrypted messages and things like that. So I think you'll see more and more. Microsoft has hinted at and shown explicitly and said, you'll see more and more in that direction as well.
Yep. And this next question that comes in from X is something that we should always be aware of. We don't want to make assumptions. We want to make sure that we're clear to everybody who is watching this stuff for the first time. And the question is, can a 24H2, Windows 11 24H2 PC become a Copilot Plus PC, or is that specific hardware?
Maybe I'll say Copilot Plus PC is a new hardware generation. So that's what it refers to. It's a kind of the next generation of Windows hardware devices that have, amongst other, baseline criteria, has a certain level of memory required and storage required, and a certain type of SoC requirements and CPU capability. But most notably, it has a NPU requirement, and so it has to have a certain amount of AI processing capability. And so there's wide range of Copilot Plus PCs now being made by different OEMs. There's different silicon sets. There's Qualcomm, AMD, and Intel all have Copilot Plus PC SoCs out there that you can power those different OEM devices. I think I read there's devices that start at $599 even that are Copilot Plus now from some OEMs. And so there's really a wide range of devices out there, but it is a new hardware floor. And it's a hardware floor that's needed for this next generation of computing in the AI era.
And the specific requirements for that, just to be very clear, are 40 trillion operations per second neural processing unit, or NPU. The battery life on all of these, you'll actually see they're all, I believe, 18 plus hours of battery life, which is a major step up. and this doesn't matter whether you're using the Intel, AMD, or Qualcomm, they're all that bare minimum or more. And then they are available from all of our major OEMs, where when Paul said SOCs, I know we're abbreviating a lot. They're available from HP, Dell, Lenovo, Surface, Samsung, Acer, Asus as well. And so you can go and get any of those. And I would highly actually recommend getting a 32 gigabyte of RAM. They do come in 16 as well. But when you're talking about AI processing capabilities, one of the things that we have seen over and over is that those companies who try to save money or save costs by going with 16 gigabytes of RAM, you'll be able to run everything, but you won't be able to run as many things at once. Right. And it's not yet due to the NPU cap or the neural processing unit cap, because 40 trillion operations per second is a lot. It's really more typically because of your memory cap. And so if you can, I recommend getting the 32 gigabytes for RAM.
Yeah, just to be clear, I know we do a lot of acronym salad here. SoC stands for System on a Chip, and that's these new modern processors that give us enhanced battery life and a lot of these other capabilities we talked about. And you're going to see this a lot when you're looking at specs for these AI-powered PCs. TOPS, you'll see it. What Arya was saying, trillions of operations per second. And it's just easier to abbreviate that as TOPS.
But I believe they'll all be officially labeled Copilot plus PC. So like, you don't have to necessarily inspect every single thing yourself. Like, you can look for that label.
And that begs the question that I get all the time. The assumption is it has to be a Surface device to be a Copilot plus PC, and we extend far beyond that ecosystem. So, all right. So this question coming in, I see 103 features on the Windows roadmap right now. How can I tell which are AI empowered? And number two, which of these features require the NPU today?
Yeah, great question. So if you actually go to the roadmap, you'll see at the top that you can filter to platform, version, status, or feature, and channel, sorry. If you go to platform, you can actually select Copilot Plus PC exclusive features. Anything on that list is exclusive to a Copilot Plus PC and is using the NPU or neural processing unit today. Now, in terms of AI generically, you could search just AI and look at all the features that come up. But majority of the features that we're investing in these days are going to be local AI or Copilot Plus PC exclusive. So searching by platform should get you nearly all of the way there.
Awesome. And again, that address is aka.ms/Windows roadmap. All right. So, we're kind of getting closer to the top of the hour here, and I guess it's a good time to talk about final thoughts. I've been running my mouth quite a bit this hour, so Paul, what are your final thoughts, and what are your hopes and dreams around AI, especially AI-powered Windows?
Well, I'll say one thought is just great to get to hear people's questions, and I think it's always a two-way street. We get to learn what's on people's minds by hearing their questions. So really appreciate everyone who turned out to can ask questions of us. I'm so optimistic and excited about what local AI compute is going to let people do, and hybrid AI compute. I think we've led a lot with these giant models in the cloud, and I think there's always going to continue to be amazing stuff happening on the cloud side, but there's also been incredible progress in the industry on the miniaturization, for lack of a better word, of these very powerful models, and bringing that kind of compute locally was going to enable much more real-time scenarios, much more privacy for everybody in the world, and just a lot more power at your fingertips. And so I'm really excited about the kinds of things we're going to be able to do with the Copilot Plus PC platform, not just the features that we have out now, but the ones that we're cooking and not talking about yet, and the ones that the world is going to make on top of this capability, because it's a open platform, and every developer out there can start to leverage this incredible power as we go forward.
Awesome. Xander, any final thoughts for us today?
Sure. Well, I think the thing that's most exciting is just when you try to sort of stretch the limits of what these tools can do and really see if you can grow your own skill set. It's just amazing the types of things that you can learn, the doors that it opens. Something that I think is comparable is, with YouTube and all of the things that you could start to learn by just watching things on YouTube, and how that sort of accelerated a lot of people's creativity and learning journey. That's just getting even more accelerated with AI. A lot of people sort of view AI as, oh, I can use this to summarize a document or to edit. And, they have a certain view on the types of things that it can do. And, if I had any sort of advice, it would be, especially for people that have an organization and have people working for them, is try to broaden the set of things that you try to do. Especially when you start to use some of the more advanced models, like I mentioned earlier with M365 Copilot's Researcher Agent. And it's incredible, the kinds of, not just like the time that you can save, which is of course a huge benefit, but the growth that everyone can experience personally by gaining new skills, the way that it brings down barriers, or it just makes things a little less scary to start to pick up new skills and just gain more ability as individuals.
Awesome. And then finally, we'll close it out with you, Aria. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think AI is exciting and it's moving so quickly. And I think one of the things that's very top of mind for me is transparency and control. I come from a background of primarily providing admin management for things like updates and other categories. And so for me, how we ensure that we're doing the right thing in the first place, responsibly providing these AI capabilities, educating people on how to use them, and doing that in a way that is safe, protected, educational, and enabling and empowering everyone is really important, as well as figuring out what the right controls are. If we're all being honest, we don't know where AI is going. We don't even know where it's going to be in 6 months, let alone in a year. And so we need to figure out quickly how we're going to develop the right controls to manage this journey and to make it available in all areas, all compliance, all industries, etc. And so if you want to come on that journey with me, that's something I spend a lot of my time thinking about, but I could use your help. And if so, you want to come and talk to me and my team about what controls we should build, join aka.ms/join community and join our customer connection program, where we actually make sure that folks are now under NDA, and we'll talk to you about all of the things we're thinking about building, where we're thinking about going, and get your feedback to make sure we're building a product that meets your needs, whether that's the right features or the right controls. So please join us and give us that feedback, because I want to make sure whatever future we build is great for all of us.
Exactly. And one final thing, I want to do another shameless plug for the Insider Preview program. And I want to point out that we've got so many ways for you to join the Insider Preview program. You don't have to join the Canary or the Dev Rings. You can join at your own pace. At the end of the day, if you only want to update once a week, you can take some of the slower channels in. But if you're really interested in our AI powered innovations and you have a Copilot PC, I strongly encourage you to take advantage of the Insider Preview program, because you'll be on the bleeding edge of these new technologies that we're continuously rolling out. All right. So again, I'd like to close out by thanking our awesome panel here, Paul, Xander, and Aria. And again, I think we caught every question. If there's any questions we missed, we will follow up with them on the respective chats. And of course, this is recorded. So if you want to come back and watch the recording in case you missed something, it'll be available as well on the platform of your choice. All right. Without further ado, I bid everybody goodbye. I'm Steve Thomas, and thank you for joining Tech Community Live. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.